by fans, for fans, the Hog Style. And now, here's your host, Sean Conti.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Hogstye. We are recording this as a weekend edition show. Why? Because we got sick of doing 2 shows a day, when the football season was going on. This is Alex hosting, like I said I would last week. And so let me introduce my co-hosts. It's Steve.
I'm here.
And that's it.
Yay, yeah, I'm here. And we do 2 shows a week, man, not 2 shows a day. Come on.
Oh, sometimes it feels like 2 shows a day.
It kind of does.
We do 2 a days.
Well, I've done 2 shows. I feel like a real radio guy. I did another
You've
show.
You've done 2 shows today.
Yeah,
right.
You did a show. I took a little commercial break. I'm here. I'm back, on the air again.
Well, the guys who do more than 1 show in a day, those are the real heroes of talk radio.
Can you imagine? Like, I don't know how I love Stephen A. Smith. I don't know how he does it, because he comes on, he does First Take, which I got to admit I've never seen.
Because he gets to go home and roll around in a bag of money.
Well, yeah, that's true.
He gets to Scrooge McDuck into a pool every day.
Can you imagine talking that much, though? I mean, he goes from First Take to normally he does, hits on other shows. Then he does his radio show, which is, 3 hours? I don't
know how long his radio show is.
Yeah, I listen to some occasionally in the day, but he talks all day long.
Is he calmer on his radio show? I never listened to it. Like, how on First Take he's always a little too overly bombastic?
Sometimes he's calmer, because, I don't think you can keep up that level of energy for 3 hours, straight.
That level of fake outrage about everything.
Well, and I don't listen to him every day. I just listen to him when I'm out and about for lunch and stuff, because he's on over the noon hour.
Gotcha.
Is what it is.
I didn't know he was a midday guy.
Yeah, it's a midday. I think what he does is he does First Take, and he takes an hour off, and then he goes straight into the radio show. I don't think it's fake outrage. I think that's just the way he is.
I think there's some fakeness to it. I've always thought there's fakeness to all those shows. All those shows.
If he was sitting in your living room, what would he act like? I guess that's the test.
I think he would be a lot calmer.
I hope so, because he wouldn't sit in my living room for very long if he wasn't calm.
There would be a point where I'd be like, you just got to go, man.
Yeah, listen, I'm an introvert. I can't handle this kind of nonsense for more than 10 minutes at a time. I don't mind talking into a microphone by myself, but I can't listen to you do it in my living room.
Right. Right. So since you're an introvert, I'm an introvert, I'm going to go do the most un-introvert thing I ever do, which is I'm going to the XFL game as soon as we're done recording, because it's Saturday, which I'm excited for, but it's going to be me and 25,000 people, apparently, at a minor league football game.
Is 25,000?
Yeah, they said they're sold out.
You know what the problem with this league is? Other than just the normal problems every little minor league football league
they all have problems.
The problem is they're playing outdoors in the wintertime. Who thought that was a good idea?
It would be fine if all their teams were located in the South, like the Alliance did last year.
But they're not,
because if you noticed, they were all in like Texas, Florida, and Southern California.
And who are these teams? There's DC and Seattle, right? Because that's
DC, Seattle, New York, LA, Tampa, Dallas, Houston, and who am I forgetting? St. Louis.
Okay, so you've got 4 wintertime teams there. You got St. Louis, New York, Seattle, and D.C. are all...
Well, Seattle's West Coast. Their winter's still pretty mild.
Listen, that's just mild by New York Northeast standards. It's not a mild winter.
Right.
It snows. There's mountains there, and it snows, and all of
sure.
that. And St. Louis, that's the coldest winter in my entire life.
But they play in a dome.
Do they? Okay, but still...
They're playing in the old Rams Stadium.
I just kind of have to wonder what on earth... What are you thinking? It seems to me it would have been better in the spring. Start in like April.
I don't have a problem with it being a winter football game. You just got to dress appropriately. Luckily, today's a nice day.
You could not pay me enough to freeze out and sitting in the Meadowlands for 3 hours watching a football game.
Well,
no,
I've done it before because of all my family up in New York. I've gone to games at the Meadowlands in the winter, like right before Christmas.
Yeah, but that's
brutal.
Different though than February.
Oh, yeah. But you're getting there. Like, that's,
you're getting there.
I
just think somebody didn't think through this very well. That's why either you have all domes or you play in the South, but having outdoor games in the Northeast in the wintertime seems dumb.
Well, there are no domes in the Northeast. Think about that. The only dome stadium in the Northeast is Syracuse.
Okay, and
That's
they're not
all.
going to have a team in Syracuse. I mean, maybe
No.
you need to play in a smaller arena. You know, I mean, you only have 25. And you've mentioned this before. I mean, you're
Right.
going to have 25, the crowd of 25,000 roughly, let's say, and
Right.
all these. And you know, where are is the New York team playing at the Meadowlands? Do you know?
Yes.
Okay, and so the Meadowlands is like 80,000, and so you're going to have
Yep.
a mostly empty stadium. It's going to look like a Redskins game. You know,
Right.
Seattle is they're playing in the Seattle Seahawks Stadium probably.
I think so, yeah.
That's
And
going to
same
look
thing.
empty. Yeah, it's going to look empty.
No, putting it in the soccer stadiums that are across the country now that are like 25,000 is
that
perfect.
seems more reasonable. Yeah.
Right. It's going to look great if you go to watch it today and you'll see DC's full. You know, that'll look good versus what New York will look like.
Yeah, exactly
But-
right. But this league seems to be have it together more than the AFL did, though.
Oh, they do. They do.
And I think they're
Yeah.
funded at least through next year, from what I
Yeah.
understand.
I
I heard that
think
somebody on
McMahon-
ESPN talking about that yesterday.
Vince McMahon put up like $100 million for the first year.
Yeah.
And he's got an extra 100 set aside or something like that.
So this isn't a case of the league's going to be gone in like week 8.
No. I think I don't know if it'll last past 1 year because we all know how these things go. You know, if
Ultimately,
it
it
can
comes
go,
down to talent. I mean, you know, is it going to be good
Yeah.
football or not good football? 'Cause, yeah, I guess.
speaking of,
Well, yeah, I guess. Sorry, but I mean, I guess the good thing about wintertime is they have an utter lack of competition. The only competition
Right.
they have is basketball, real competition. So I guess that's probably what Vince is thinking about it.
I mean, I think that's true. And the other thing about talent, it was a funny story. Johnny Manziel apparently got all pissy about the fact that he wasn't even allowed to try out for this league. And frankly, you know what? Cardell Jones, who's going to be starting for the Defenders, probably a better pure quarterback than Johnny Manziel.
I always liked Cardell Jones. Maybe he wasn't
Yeah.
NFL talent. He didn't, but I mean, he's more of a pocket
Cannon
passer.
arm, big
Yeah,
guy.
more of a pocket
Yeah.
passer. I mean, and Johnny Manziel. I mean, he never looked like he was. Even I think I've always said, even a sober and hardworking Johnny Manziel was not a starter, much less a first-round
No.
draft pick. He just never
No.
was, and he's not sober. At least he wasn't. And he looks like
Right.
he looks like a high school quarterback in terms of his physique and build and stuff. He's not. He needs to develop his body, you know, more. I don't know. I have zero sympathy for Johnny Manziel. He comes from money. He doesn't need this. You know, he comes from a lot of money. He comes from Texas oil money, big time oil money. His family has
Right.
lots and lots. His family could buy
Right.
one of these XFL teams, you know.
Probably, and maybe that's what he'll do, because I think next year, if they are around, they'll try and expand into Texas. So
Probably. Well, I mean, they're in Houston, I guess, already.
Houston and Dallas, but San Antonio, like, I think the only reason they're not there is because the AAF was going to be there.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, I can't root for the home team because that's just it's contrary to my contrarian ways. So I will be rooting for the Seattle. What's my team called? The Seattle what?
Dragons.
Dragon. Okay, you can tell I've paid a lot of attention to this. I'll be
Right.
rooting for the Seattle Dragons today.
Yeah, you're rooting for Jimmy Zorn is who you're rooting for.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know, it'll be exciting football in the city, and that actually brings us to another little topic that the mayor was apparently at the Qatar sporting event.
Does that
It
mean
was
they're
some kind of-
inviting all Qataris to celebrate sports or what? So both
No,
people are
it
going
was
to
like
show
the
up.
Qatar embassy hosted a day in sports event in the city, and I don't know what that is. It sounds
Qatar
very
embassy did.
yeah, it's very weird sounding.
So the embassy,
and-
it's just going to be only embassy personnel there. You
Right,
said
that's
not
what
the
I'm thinking.
Qatari Airlines, the Qatari embassy sponsored this.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the embassy who's in. And isn't Qatar one of those places where the government runs the airline anyway? So
The government runs everything in Qatar, yes.
yeah.
Anything
yeah.
that makes
So-
money, at least.
Right. But yeah, so the mayor was there,
So
and
she was
real
speaking
briefly,
to a crowd
she
of
still.
tens, basically, probably.
I think that the Redskins had a bunch of people there because you know it's that kind of event.
Okay.
For hobnobbing. But she said they still want to push for, you know, the Redskins getting a stadium. And I heard that and I'm like, oh, that's cute because you haven't done anything successfully yet in terms of getting the land or, you know, even like, okay, if RFK were a dead dream and you still really wanted a stadium, you would do what you had to do with like DC United or the baseball stadium. You go find like abandoned warehouses and that kind of stuff. you buy up the land that way,
Yeah.
and then you put something in.
Well, the
and
problem
they haven't
is
even approached that.
like, you need like a couple hundred acres for a football. That's the problem, because the stadium's like 100 acres. The parking, then you have parking lots. That's the problem. Whereas like the basketball arena or Nationals Park, its park is half that size. So it is a challenge. I mean, you would know better than me. I mean, is there any area in D.C. that there's a couple hundred acres that can be bought out like that doesn't displace a bunch of residents? Because one thing like the D.C. government wouldn't want to do is kick a bunch of poor people out of their houses. They don't want to do that.
Obviously.
Yeah.
So there is a place that I've always kind of advocated they should try and push for, and that is the old Pepco power plant site where they tore down. It's actually just north of RFK Stadium and across the river, like walking distance, a long walk, but walking distance from RFK.
So that's in southeast then?
Northeast.
Right. Northeast, okay.
It's actually fairly close to me, but that's not why I'd want it. But it's 77 acres that used to be a power plant and isn't anymore.
So then you buy out and kick out a few people around them, and yeah.
Well, I don't think you'd even need to do that.
You can't put a football stadium like he would want on 77 acres.
You could put the stadium there. There's parking. There's at where RFK is still. You could finagle some parking there. Maybe finagle some parking in some empty parks and stuff that are around it.
You're going to make me pull up Bing Maps and look at this, aren't you? Like live on the air. Can Steve find the PepsiCo
I'll show it to you later, because I've actually I've looked into this a little bit just out of curiosity to see if it would be big enough.
I mean, something like that. You're right in that that's what they need to do. Something like that.
You find that big piece of land that's not being used very well, and you use that. And even that's just more theoretical.
Well, I mean, and also, can the city of D.C. even afford to finance that?
The city's got a huge surplus right now. I do know that. Like $300-400 million surplus or something.
Okay, so it's not broke, because the city used to be broke.
Yeah, no, the city hasn't been broke since you left. You were the problem, Steve.
I lived in D.C. in the 70s, though. I lived in Maryland and Virginia.
Yeah, I know.
Later. So don't. But I think I would blame you, not me. Okay, so tell me. So this is in Northeast.
I moved into the city, and they were having a surplus.
Okay, I'm looking at a map here. In comparison to the U.S. National Arboretum and Catholic University, which is, tell me where I'm supposed to look.
Go south of the Arboretum, down the Anacostia River, and right where Benning Road crosses it.
Oh, I see. Okay. And then Benning Road. Okay.
It's a pretty big spot. It's not quite big enough. I think I looked it up. It was 77 acres.
And so I just
you could fit FedEx Field in 77 acres and have a little space for parking, but not enough.
Well, you couldn't fit FedEx in 77 acres, but you'd get close.
I did an overlay.
I'm just telling you, FedEx Field is 100 acres, man.
Well, with FedEx and the parking, sure.
So it's pretty near RFK then.
Yeah, exactly. But again, I don't even think they've ever considered doing anything like this for the Skins. So.
I don't think they've considered anything. I think this is just the mayor flapping her gums more than anything.
Yeah, and she has a lot of gums to flap. Very toothy mayor we have now, is what I'm saying.
The problem is that D.C. has zero clout whatsoever in Congress at all, like none.
Yeah, and so they're never getting the land that they want.
Even the member of Congress, who is obviously, polar opposite of my politics, but what's her name? I always forget her name. She's been there forever.
I'm blanking all the time too.
And she's even your representative. You can't remember, and that's part of the problem.
You're putting me on the spot, and I know who it is because I've written her 100 angry letters over the years.
Oh, have you? I mean, but even she can't get anything done. She gets nothing done.
Norton,
Congress.
Thank you.
Ella Holmes Norton. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
She has no clout at all either. So it's like
this
isn't going to happen absent someone else taking an interest in it.
Right, or them finding land somewhere else that isn't government owned.
Yeah, or Dan Snyder needs to go buy some Congress members some coke and hookers and,
Right, which I think he's tried, and they're like, thanks for the coke and hookers, sucker.
Yeah, exactly right. Because he doesn't have any clout either.
No. But, so I don't think that's a huge update. It really seems like Drew's just like, I don't want us to be out of it yet. And after they talked to, Maryland's State House or whoever it was.
Yeah.
The folks in Annapolis.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, it's just we're going to keep watching until they start breaking ground on something, right?
I mean, he still has time, but from a development standpoint, it's getting to the point where he sort of needs to make a decision pretty soon. Or find a solution, rather, pretty soon. It's getting to that point. Were you who was the person who was saying that he's probably going to threaten to move at some point? Yeah, I said that.
Yeah.
And the reason why I said that is, he's he grew up in Maryland, I guess, right?
Right.
But in the DMV area for sure, and he's obviously a Redskins fan. Say what you want about him, but he does love the team. But at some point, the only leverage he has is to say, listen, I don't want to do it, but none of you people are playing ball with me, so I'm going to move this team to San Antonio.
Right.
Or Salt Lake City.
Maybe London for him, because he did spend years in London.
And didn't he try to buy a soccer team at one point in time?
He did. I think he owns a soccer team.
Yeah. So maybe he's a candidate for the London team. None of us, some of us want that. I don't want that, because I think people who think there's a new NFL team is going to pop up magically out of the sand in D.C. in a year isn't going to happen.
Nothing happens like that quickly.
It would be like a half a decade at the least,
Yeah. Well, let's focus. Let's move on, though, because we've already flapped our gums for about 15 minutes about nonsense.
It's a slow time of year.
Yes. Hashtag Redskins do something, because we need something to talk about.
That's
jerks.
a big hashtag.
That's a big hashtag. Let's talk about, there was a couple stories in the news about Dwayne Haskins. I think Rivera was saying that Haskins needs to show him that he's going to put in the work. You had something about Doug Williams saying something similar along those lines.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. Haskins is going into his sophomore year. Usually this is a make-or-break off season for a lot of guys, and it really does always come down to, are you the first guy in, last guy out? Are you, just putting in the time that you need? Haskins, from what I've read and heard, is, welcoming that as a challenge because, despite the, stories about him, I don't think he is one of those guys who's not going to put in the effort.
Are there really stories like that, though? I mean, I've never heard...
Yeah, you hear it. You don't. Well, you're not local, so you don't hear the negative stuff probably as much as I do.
I mean, are these just idiot fans, like Twitter people, or are you hearing real stories? Because I've never seen a real story that says he's lazy.
I think it's more idiot hearsay.
Okay,
not
there you go.
Even
so
fans.
Don't pay attention to it.
Yeah.
It's nonsense.
But remember during the season when he wasn't looking over the shoulder of who was it, Jay or the QB coach at one point?
Like you take one snapshot out of one game, one single moment in time. Oh my God, he's not looking over his shoulder. That means he's lazy.
Right. He doesn't care, obviously.
That's just so stupid. Look, I mean, I don't think Dwayne is lazy at all.
No.
I think Riverboat is taking a tact, right? And Doug Williams is kind of playing along with it. They could have just said Dwayne is the man. We're going forward with him. Dwayne is the man. But what he's done is he's challenged him publicly.
It's a little tough love.
Yeah, he's called him out publicly and said, you need to earn this job. And there's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't mean they think he's not going to do it. That just means they've challenged him. And I think that's probably the way Ron Rivera is. I don't think Ron is the type of guy who's going to just say, okay, congrats, you're the man, dude. I don't think that's Ron Rivera.
No. Well, I mean, I think that's kind of what endears him to players, too, over the course of his career, is that I think Jay kind of got a bad rap for this because he was a meritocracy guy early on, too, with a lot of players, until he started finding the guys he liked. And then
he wasn't a meritocracy.
Right. But early on, I think a lot of coaches try and go that route. I think all coaches do, really. They say, I want to see who's the best, and then whoever becomes their guy becomes their guy. But,
yeah, I mean, there's no doubt, though, that Ron Rivera has a tougher reputation than Jay Gruden did.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm not saying he doesn't. That's not what I was. That wasn't my point.
And Doug Williams is an old school guy too. Doug Williams isn't going to just hand a job to somebody either.
Well, I mean, remember, Doug Williams has some kind of contempt for franchise quarterbacks anyway. Like he's had quotes in the past where he's like, "Well, he might be a great quarterback, but I don't care. You need other guys."
Well, think about Doug Williams' history. There's probably a reason for that.
I know. I know where it comes from. I think Doug knows where it comes from. I think we all know where it comes from.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
he played in Tampa. That's what it is.
He went 0-16 in Tampa. 0-14.
It has nothing to do with Tampa.
Yeah, no, he doesn't. It doesn't. But listen, I mean, I do have faith in Dwayne. I think they're right. He does need to study. You know, I mean, he was photographed yesterday with who's the basketball player in Dallas, the Euro guy who's all the rage right now. He was photographed with him at a basketball game yesterday. So what? You know,
basketball is your thing, not mine.
Yeah, that doesn't mean Luka Doncic. That's who.
Okay.
You know, and that does just because he went to one basketball game does not mean we need to have 1,000 people say you need to study. He's allowed to go to a basketball game, for God's sakes. Sure. You know, but is he working every day? Is he spending every day as his job studying Ron Rivera's new offense? Has he asked Ron for materials yet? Has he talked to Ron?
You mean Turner's new offense, really? Because if Ron Rivera, it's not really Ron Rivera's offense.
Turner, right. So you're right. But the point is the same. I mean, he does need to be doing that every day as his full-time. That and working out need to be his job. There's no doubt. He doesn't need to be going to weeks on end to vacation at Disneyland or whatever. He doesn't need to work.
No.
But every photograph you see does not mean that he's not working.
Well, and here's the thing that I think people forget or lose context of. I realize a lot of these young guys now are very socially media heavy. Dwayne is on Twitter a lot. Geis is. Heck, even our top 3 head coaches, Del Rio, Riverboat, and I think Turner, they're
Turner's
all on Twitter now.
Yeah.
Which is crazy, when you think about it, like that even the head coaches are now doing this. But people on social media are not going to post their working, You're not going to see Dwayne Haskins tweet, hey, I just learned this new play.
Sitting at my kitchen table right now, reading a playbook.
Right. Here's my iPad with me looking at this play diagram here. Yay. Now, maybe that would be a funny bit if a player started doing that all the time.
Please don't create bits, players. Just study. We don't need that.
No, and that's my point, though. Your posts on social media are usually going to be the things you're doing for fun. So, if a guy's having fun, that's what you're going to see.
Yeah, I mean, and I think Darius Geis is more active than Dwayne is, but they're both
very active, though.
Yeah, they're both of that generation that they grew up on social media, and that's just kind of what they do. I don't blame them for that. Only thing I care about is, are you working every day?
Right.
You do need to be doing that. They're right about that. You need to be doing it right now. You need to be, you needed to have spent the night at Scott Turner's house, woke up with him, and started talking about the playbook. You can stay in the other bedroom. Don't misunderstand.
That's the question.
Stay in the spare bedroom. That's fine. Or don't. Right. I mean, it's your choice. I don't care. I don't care if you're, have pink polka dots as long as you can play football. but I mean, I was kidding. But I mean, he does need to put that level of dedication in the entire offseason. There's no doubt about it.
Oh yeah, and like I said, sophomore season, we all know that's critical for every quarterback.
Because listen, I mean, if this season goes south on him, people are going to start to say he's not a franchise quarterback. They need to move on. Who are they going to bring in to replace him? He needs this season to go well. Yes,
exactly. And you actually brought up the next guy who also needs his season to go well, and that's Darius Geis, who I know he had a couple stories in the press this week. He had one with the Post that I couldn't read because of the stupid freaking paywall.
Oh, I had to clear my cookies to get past their paywall.
I thought that they made it so you can't even do that anymore.
Well, no.
Okay, good.
They might have tried, but they failed because I couldn't read the story. And I said, let me check my subscription stats. So I never subscribed. So let me clear my cookies and see if this works. And lo and behold, it worked.
Well, yay. And there's a tip for you kids out there.
Yeah, clear your cookies. You can beat paywalls.
Right.
Because, see, now our buddies, we don't have any friends at the Washington Post anymore. I'm not afraid of bashing them anymore.
No. All of our good Post contacts have kind of left.
Well, Keith McMillan is still there. I talk to him sometimes, but he...
Keith is. Cindy is still there, but they don't do Redskins stuff anymore.
Keith isn't even in sports anymore. He's doing general assignments now.
Yeah, which is weird.
Yeah, so Darius Geis.
Yeah, What was the interview about?
Okay. Darius obviously did a interview with the Post. It was sort of an update. What are you doing now? How do you feel about everything that's happened to you, et cetera. He was photographed in the White House with President Trump, and
right.
The people who hate Donald Trump didn't like that and all that. Darius responded to that by saying, "Here's this quote." He posted a photo of Trump in the Oval Office, and his quote was,
right.
And forgive me, he speaks. He's got some slang in here, so I'm not going to try to imitate him. But he writes, they going to get. I'm going to just edit this. They're going to get salty, but I don't get into politics. All I know is I come from nothing, and it will always be an honor to meet a president of the United States. God bless everyone. I guess I can't do slang like that. It would sound phony from me.
No,
and he's right.
You know what? Frankly, better that you didn't.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. And that's all it is. And so it's a photograph, and he's like, "Hey, the man's president. Get over it." But in terms of stuff that actually matters, obviously Darius knows that he's been injured this entire time.
Right.
He says, "I've been lucky, unfortunately, so far. I want to be healthy. I want to play. That's all there is to next season. I want to play. What frustrates me is always talking about it. I'm tired of talking about it." He says he's ready. He says his MCL sprain is healed, which I don't doubt. It's been a long time for
It's a sprain, too. It wasn't a tear.
Yeah, but, Darius has something to prove. There's no doubt about it because he's got the injury. He's got the injury-prone label, which is fair. I've called him injury-prone.
Yeah,
and
he is. Yeah. He doesn't like it, but it's
the
true.
Truth. Yeah, it's the truth. So that's, and this kind of brings us to... So that's his interview. It wasn't all that much. It's kind of an off-season, hey, we need to talk to somebody kind of interview.
Soft news.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And this is, by the way, if anybody wants to read it, this is by Kareem Copeland from a week ago, January 31st. Mm-hmm. So that was the story. But it does bring us to kind of a bigger topic, which is running backs. I wrote a little story about Darius Geis on our website Friday. That remind everybody that the Redskins have just a couple weeks to make a decision on Adrian Peterson. Now, we might have mentioned this on the air before. I can't remember, but I know I've said it other places. The Redskins only have an option on Darius or on Adrian for next season.
Yeah, right.
He is not signed next season. They have to take their option 25 days before the start of the league year. Okay, so that's the end of February. So they have till
they have basically 3 weeks.
Yeah, they kind of have 3 weeks from now to sign him. So, ordinarily I wouldn't be in favor of handing $3 million to a 35-year-old
running back.
Because his base salary is $2.2 million. He's got he had a $1.5 million signing bonus. So for those of you who are the salary cap nerds, that adds $750,000 to his dead cap for 2020, and he's got a vesting roster bonus that comes up. So his dead cap is $3.1 million, a little over $3.1 million for the 2020 season. That's a lot for a 35-year-old running back. It truly is.
It is.
And by the way, the February 25th is the magic date, by the way.
Okay. So a little less time than 3 weeks, really.
But my problem with it is, if you think about it, this is before free agency. Could the Redskins find Jamal, our own Jamal, who's not with us today, wrote a column. It's also on our website that went over some Redskins free agent running back decisions, or some available free agent running backs. So the question is, do the Redskins want to gamble that they can find somebody? They gamble that Darius Geis is going to be healthy and good, because we don't know either. Or do they take the safe route and go with AP? Because just to finish this thought up, the only other running backs on the roster right now are Bryce Love, who's coming off an ACL tear of his own, and then somebody named Josh Ferguson, who nobody knows, who was on the practice squad and called up for a couple games. That's it. So, Alex, what do we do? What do they do?
Well, I personally, I'm not a big fan of overspending on running backs. I don't think anyone is these days. When you look at the free agent class, though, there are a lot of names in that free agent class this year, potentially, at running back. I was just scanning it on Walter Football, all the possible free agents.
I would scan Walter Football, but he's got so many ads that it locks up my computer almost every time.
Yeah, it's pretty ad heavy.
Walter follows us. So, Walter, if you're listening, please eliminate. I know it's money, but, man, I mean, it's clogging up your website. Sorry, go ahead, Alex.
Derrick Henry, that's probably the big name. You got Kareem Hunt, who I wouldn't touch with a 50-foot pole.
No.
Kenyon Drake, Melvin Gordon, Austin Eckler, Matt
Carlos
Breida.
Hyde. I've liked Carlos Hyde from the beginning. The names that Jamal, to give Jamal a plug, the names that Jamal listed on his column were Carlos Hyde and Jordan Howard. Jordan Howard from the Eagles last year.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably going to be 5-6 good running backs available in free agency, but you're not going to get them for a better deal than what you're going to pay AP.
No.
And so if you're just going to play a little bit of Moneyball with how you're thinking, AP, you pay him $3 million. I don't know what Geis is getting, probably $1 million or so.
Geis is on a rookie deal.
Rookie deal, second round pick.
Yeah.
Love is practically nothing. Like, I'd rather take a gamble, see what they have, maybe draft a guy late, and just go with that. Because we saw this with San Francisco, and we see it every year. You can find running backs almost any round who can at least be functional. You can find them as undrafted free agents.
Well, you can, but are you going to? That's the problem.
I think it. I mean, I wouldn't depend on that as my ultimate plan. Like, as starter, I'm just going to find a guy.
I guess that's why I brought this topic up. Because
I'm talking backup, and if you're talking number 2 guy, number 3 guy, I think you can make that gamble pretty easily.
Because I guess, by the way, Darius is at $1.2 million cap hit this year.
So very low.
Yeah, in the grand scheme of things, sure low. So if you don't take Adrian's option, are you willing to gamble on Darius Geis being the man, which the team could gamble on, or are you willing to go sign somebody like Carlos Hyde? Or now I know you and I don't want Kareem Hunt. I can't speak for you, but I don't want Kareem Hunt because I think he's kind of a sleazeball. I just don't want that.
I don't want anyone with those kind of off-the-field issues. We have enough problems.
Yeah, exactly. I don't either. And so, but there's a group of people out there fans who definitely don't care about that.
Oh, sure. I'm sure.
He's of all the running backs out there, Kareem's probably the only one that could probably outperform AP, I'd say.
Melvin Gordon, maybe.
Maybe so,
yeah.
But the Redskins don't want to spend the money on him. I mean,
no. The money for Melvin Gordon and Derrick Henry is going to be like $10 million.
If you're going to spend money on them, you might as well just sign Peterson, if you ask me. The guy I like, which is Carlos Hyde, liked him last year, wrote about him last year and the year before. Averaged 4.4 yards per carry with the Texans last year. 245
He's getting up
rushes.
there, though.
Yeah, he's 28 years old, but we're not talking about a long-term commitment here either.
You
sign him to a couple-year deal. You can cut him after year 1 probably. I mean, I would feel comfortable with a guy with Carlos Hyde in particular being the starting running back. If you could get him for less than what you're paying Peterson, would you do it? Maybe, but you're gambling. You can get him. That's just the problem. You're gambling since you have to decide on Peterson in 2.5 weeks. You're gambling that you can sign a Carlos Hyde or a Melvin Gordon or somebody, or the others, Jordan Howard. It's a gamble. That's my problem.
If I'm Ron Rivera, it looks like he's already developing a good rapport with AP. So I think AP, if I'm thinking logically, that's probably what's going to happen is he'll come back. But you sit down, you say, do you want to come back for the one more year or not? And I think you go out because Peterson, he's done nothing but the right stuff on the field for the Redskins.
Right.
I think it's one of those things. Treat the guy right. See what he wants if you have that option before you, as the club, make your decision. Because he's done nothing wrong at this point. So, do it with high class, whatever your decision is, and
And by the way, did we say this or not? I mean, I don't think we. I can't remember if we said it here, but the rumor this week was that the Redskins are going to take the option. So, right. I mean, the odds are he's going to be back, but it's a big cap hit for him. The one thing I wouldn't do is I wouldn't just trust that Darius Geis is going to be healthy with having another unhealthy guy behind him, and then whoever Josh Ferguson is. And I don't mean that as an insult, but I mean, you can't trust that.
Here's the thing. Last year, who was it that we signed? Smallwood?
Yes, Wendell Smallwood.
Yeah. If the worst had happened and you had to start Wendell Smallwood for a game, I think you'd still be okay. Like, he's and that's my point about running backs. You can find at least a serviceable guy, maybe not in week 17, but, up through midway through a season, you can find serviceable guys out there.
I mean, but is it going to be a plus for the team? You know what? This roster has so many roster holes already. I just don't want to see them create another one when it's unnecessary. They can afford Peterson and $3 million. I went over this. I wrote a column about this a few weeks ago.
And I think the other thing we haven't even mentioned. Peterson's still going to be a functional running back. And even though he's 35, he was near 1,000 yards last year. He got 1,000 yards the year before. You're still talking about a guy who can probably, even if this is the year where he starts going downhill, he'll get you 500-600 yards. He can be a rotational guy at that point.
I mean, he showed no signs of not being able to do what he's done for the last 2 years, at least.
But we all know in the NFL, eventually you just hit a wall.
Except that he's Adrian Peterson. He should have hit the wall 5 years ago, and he didn't.
Sure.
Can you use him up for one more year? I say you can. I mean, he actually had a better year this year than he did in 2018, honestly. I mean, from a statistical standpoint, he averaged 4.2 yards a carry in 2018, averaged 4.3 in 2019.
Yeah, and less carries overall. That was the difference.
211 carries versus 251 carries, which is why he didn't make 1,000. He probably blames Jay Gruden for not getting 1,000 yards, which is frankly fair. But anyway, I mean, there's been no signs that he can't do that again. At least average 4 yards carry for you. And more importantly, he's. I think the team seems to really respect him.
I think so. I think what's rare is he has a very good relationship with Darius Geis.
Right.
Usually, you don't see that when you got two running backs vying for that. That job.
Because I think, to be honest, the beginning of the end for Jay Gruden was really when he sat AP in week 1 and then bashed him in the media. He seemed to kind of lose the team when that happened. I think that was the beginning of the end for Jay. Was that moment? He should never have done that. He shouldn't have benched him, and he definitely shouldn't have bashed him.
He shouldn't have benched him, and I think I don't think that was about AP. I mean, I think it's fair to say that was him and Bruce
Lashing
Allen,
out, probably,
that's what it was all about. But we don't want to rehash how last year everyone was set up to fail by Bruce Allen.
No,
but they were.
Let's
just not go over it again. But all right, so here's the thing: when I look at the guys we have, Love is the question mark. I mean, he's another guy who he could be. All three of these guys, they're all feature back types. None of them are. You don't really have a change of pace guy right now. Like Love is a little probably more athletic, speedy.
He's dramatically more speedy. He's a 4.3 guy. Before his injury, he was running in the 4.3s.
Right, but we're now after injury, so
right.
I'm assuming he's no longer going to be a 4.3.
People forget about Bryce.
4.5.
I mean, Bryce Love was a Heisman Trophy candidate. He was probably the best running back in the NCAA there for his junior year, and he kind of regressed a little bit, if I recall, in his last year there. And then
before
he
got hurt.
Yeah. But for a period of time there, Bryce Love was the best running back in the country in college football.
Yeah, and he could have a ton of talent.
His ceiling is Alvin Kamara franchise back. That's his ceiling, whether he gets there or not. Whether he's the same. Running backs a lot of times aren't the same. We'll see. They certainly shouldn't count on it.
No. But my point is, you have, I think, three guys who could be bulk load carry types.
Yeah.
What we're losing is the Chris Thompson third down receiving back option. And, judging by what we saw out of Carolina over the years, they like having a running back who can catch, or at least and that might not have been Turner, but I think those are Rivera offenses.
It's safe to, they see the Redskins draft a lot of running backs, and so it's safe to say they're going to draft somebody.
Sure,
it's just a matter of whether that person can make a contribution.
And
whether they can be ready.
And can they find a scat back type?
And maybe Bryce can be a scat. Maybe Bryce can be the scat back, for a time being. While AP is here, and then at some point going forward, they have kind of a two-headed monster of Darius and Bryce Love.
Right.
Who are both elite level performers when they're in. That
Bryce
would be the best case scenario. Bryce and Guys, Mr. Inside, Mr. Outside.
Right. And we always dream about that dynamic duo at running back. I think back to who was it? Alfred Morris, and who was the guy we drafted after him? Was that?
I'm totally blanking on who you're talking about.
It was another big back. It was.
Matt
and he
Jones?
only ever had 100-yard game.
Matt Jones?
Yeah, Matt Jones. Thank you.
Matt Jones is an XFL guy now.
Yeah, I know he is. But we've wanted that number one, number two thing at running back for so long, and they just never can get it.
I think I've wanted dynamic anything from the Redskins for so long and can never get it.
Yeah.
I mean, Terry McLaurin, honestly, is about the most excited I've ever been about playmakers
an
on
offensive
the Redskins
player
for a long time.
Well, I mean, I could say you could go back to Cooley and Portis and Moss, but that's going back 10 years now already.
Yeah, when they didn't draft him either. In terms of
Portis,
they drafted Cooley,
but that was it.
But if you want, so the other option, of course, they could bring back Chris Thompson. There's nothing to say they could back Thompson. Just if you want the complete list here. Lamar Miller, Chris Thompson, LaShawn McCoy, Carlos Hyde, Melvin Gordon, Damian Williams from Kansas City, Theo Riddick, Peyton Barber, Frank Gore, Derrick Henry, Derek Sproles, Kareem Hunt, Marshawn Lynch, Bilal Powell, Isaiah Kroll has talent, Kenjon Barber has talent. He's 31, though. The list goes down and down from there. So those are some of the big names.
Who will retire first, Frank Gore or you?
Yeah, I know. Frank Gore, 37 years old. I mean,
still getting it done.
Yeah, go out. You get yours, dude.
Yeah.
What can you say?
Yeah.
It's really who's going to retire first, Frank Gore or Adrian Peterson.
Well, I think. I mean, it's rare that you have two guys like that at the same time in the NFL. I feel like.
Yeah, both Hall of Famers too. Frank is for those of you who wonder, I mean, he's probably got less attention than Peterson over the years, but his numbers are Hall of Fame worthy for sure.
Well, because AP in his prime was more dynamic, whereas Gore's always just been like the bruising power back.
Yeah. Now, I mean, we've kind of ignored Chris Thompson a little bit. I mean, the problem, I would love to have him back, but the problem is his cost. Because you're going to have to offer him basically
and health. I mean, let's not discount the fact that he's just never been the same since that bad injury a couple years ago.
Well, that's kind of where I was about to go with this because, his average annual value was $3.5 million a year, contract-wise. I just don't think you can pay him that much considering his injury history. No. And so, I mean, you'd have to insult him by throwing him a lower value contract offer, which, I mean, if he doesn't have any options, maybe he'd take it. But I would say the odds are probably against us that he'd come back for that reason. Somebody might pay him, but the Redskins, maybe not.
I remember seeing an interview with him where he said, he loves being here. He would want to stay, but he also realizes the economic situation that he's in. And, I mean, I think I've talked to him, when I was at training camp at least once, maybe twice. He is a smart guy, and I think he realizes that, he's where he is. He got hurt, 3 of the last 4 years now?
Yeah.
He's when he was 100%, he might have been our most dangerous player on offense for a couple years, but he's just not going to be that anymore. He's 29. He's had 3 serious leg injuries at this point.
Well, I mean, also, every player says they want to be here. I'd like to find the player that says, no, I'm hoping to leave next year.
His name, Kirk Cousins.
Well, yeah, I guess other than Kurt or Kirky, depending on what you want to call him. because either one works. Kurt or Kirky, one of the two.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, Kirk Cousins irritates me the more and more I see him. Every time I see him, I get more and more irritated with that guy.
With that fake beard of his that he just like shaves exactly to look like 2 Day Stubble and all that. Everything about him's fake.
He looks like he's a phony. I mean, we praised him when he was here to a certain extent, but I think it took me a while to see through him. Some of you out there saw through him immediately, to your credit, but it took me a while. But I think he's a big phony.
Well, I think we had the same issue with RG3. When he was here, we all loved him, and then after a while, you realized how much of a fraud he was.
Yeah. He's a guy who wasted a lot of talent. There's no doubt about that.
Well, that too. But I'm even talking about the personality thing. But do you have anything else about running backs, or do we want to move on to our last topic?
We can move on. I could talk for 45 minutes another 45 minutes about it if you want, but we can move on.
Did you have any salient points about running backs, not mindless ramblings?
No. Okay, I can mindlessly ramble for 45 minutes, but no, I think we've hit running backs enough.
Okay. All right. What's your final thing? Do you think we grab anyone in free agency, or do you think this is not
I think they're going to sign. I think they're going to enact their option on Peterson and bring him back.
And that's it?
Yeah.
All right. I think we're in agreement. All right. The last thing we wanted to chat about, because, again, hashtag there's nothing going on, so please, Redskins, do something so we have something to talk about. We never really gave our thoughts comprehensively about the 3 coaching changes in the NFC East. And you saw an article that kind of made you say you want to bring this up again.
Yeah.
And so...
It was John Keim on his ESPN Redskins blog where you can find it.
So we know the Eagles stayed pat. They got a coach who won a Super Bowl there, so he's probably going to stick around for another couple of years in Peterson. Redskins quickly signed Ron Rivera like 10 minutes after the season ended. And Cowboys went with Mike McCarthy, and Giants got some dude named Joe Judge.
Right.
Where do you want to start? You want to start with the Giants or the Cowboys?
Well, let's start with the Cowboys.
Okay.
Look, Mike McCarthy's offense sucked and was terrible in Green Bay, okay?
Last 2 or 3 years, yeah.
That's why Aaron Rodgers fired him. And I'm not being facetious. Aaron Rodgers fired him, okay?
Right. Aaron Rodgers said, this guy's a joke.
Yeah, and Aaron Rodgers was the one that told the team to get rid of him. You will not convince me otherwise. Now, McCarthy, for his credit, has said that he went out and spent the year studying his film. He brought a bunch of his assistant coaches to his house, and they all sat around watching film. So supposedly he's a new man, a new coach. I don't know if that's true or not, but I can tell you this. I feel much better about Ron Rivera as a Redskins coach than I do Mike McCarthy as a Dallas Cowboys coach. I mean, I said that poorly. I feel much better that the Redskins got Ron Rivera
than you would if they'd gotten Mike McCarthy.
Correct. Yeah.
Yes, and
I feel
I'm with
much
you there.
better about that. Yes.
Mike McCarthy he's always struck me as like a fat version of Jay Gruden. Or maybe Jay was the skinny version of McCarthy. I don't really know which order that
Jay's
goes
got
in.
a little pudge to him now, too.
Yeah, but not Mike McCarthy pudge.
McCarthy is...
Mike McCarthy...
He's getting up to the Andy Reid level of pudge.
He might be past the Andy Reid level, honestly. The interviews I saw when he was announced in Dallas way back when, he looked like he hasn't seen the sun in 2 years, and he's getting this is a deep cut. But if you know the computer guy in the movie Blade, the computer vampire.
Oh my God, that is a deep cut.
Yeah. But it was like this 500-pound albino vampire that couldn't move, and Blade kills him with a UV flashlight. It's great. But that's Mike McCarthy.
That's Mike McCarthy? We're comparing Mike McCarthy to a vampire computer hacker.
Right. That was 500 pounds, and I'm not sure if it was a man or a woman, actually.
I can't remember. Oh, my God.
But, yes. So Mike McCarthy, not healthy. If he's your head coach, you got to worry he's going to die on the sideline any minute. That worries me because he does not look like a healthy person.
I mean, we've never heard of any health problems with McCarthy, to be fair.
No,
I understand your point, but is there any chance the man doesn't have diabetes? I get it. I mean, he's big. He doesn't look healthy. Coaches
it's
sit
not
around.
Diabetes I'm worried about. It's heart disease.
Well, diabetes wouldn't help that.
No.
But even if you forget about that, I just don't think he's a very good coach.
No. He's a fine OC type. Like,
I don't think he's a fine OC type either. If he's a fine OC type, no. If you really look at what the Packers were doing, their scheme was terrible. And the only reason it worked at all is because Aaron Rodgers is a freaking magician.
Sure.
I just don't think he's a very good coach, and I think his scheme. If you looked at his scheme, it was very simplistic. Mm-hmm. And they never could solve the problem in Green Bay of you need balance. They never solved that problem. You need a running game.
Well, they were using wide receivers as running backs for his last couple of years.
Yeah, I mean they've gone through a couple here and there that were better than others, but I think Mike McCarthy ruined Aaron Rodgers' potential. Aaron Rodgers is an all-time great quarterback. He has one Super Bowl ring, and that's it. And I blame Mike McCarthy for that. So I don't know why Jerry Jones. See, here's the other dynamic. Jerry Jones needs a beta personality. Okay, Jerry Jones is the ultimate alpha male.
Right.
I don't like Jerry Jones. I'm a Redskins fan, but Jerry needs someone who's going to be a yes man. Jerry does not want Jimmy Johnson out there, or like Bill Parcells. There's a reason Bill Parcells didn't last very long in Dallas.
And Mike McCarthy definitely is a beta
He's a beta male. Right, he's a beta male. And so that's what you need. Like Jason Garrett, beta male. That's what Jerry Jones wants. I think Jerry wants to win, but Jerry only wants to win his way, and he's fine with not winning. He's fine if it doesn't happen, as long as they did it his way. So that's McCarthy, and I don't think it's going to work.
No, I think it'll blow up in their face fantastically. And because I also think for all his flaws, Garrett was very good at kind of getting the most out of players and coaching up guys on offense at least. Yeah. I mean, because look at the offenses they had with him. Mike McCarthy doesn't really do that so much.
Yeah, it's like what with the Green Bay Packers' success screams, or lack thereof, I want him as a head coach.
Well, and tell me, or even what about Mike McCarthy's time in Green Bay was his stamp on the organization?
Exactly right. But again, I think Jerry's more Jerry's all about Jerry, and I think ultimately it's about who will do my bidding more than anything else. And
it was a name he could sell. I think that matters too.
He's a name. That's right. He's a name. You can't go get Joe Judge and expect the Dallas Cowboy fan base
the opposite of a name. Other than I like the name Joe Judge because of alliteration. Like no one knew who he was when the Giants.
My first thing that went through my head was Mike Judge, who was the creator of the Simpsons.
No, Beavis and Butthead.
Beavis and Butthead.
Yes.
Honestly, to be perfectly honest, I had never heard the name Joe Judge in my entire life before he became the head coach of the. But we know a lot about football, Alex. We keep up with these things, and I'd never heard of this man. If you want to go into his background, because I think it's funny. So 2005 to 2007, graduate assistant at Mississippi State. 2008, linebackers coach at Birmingham Southern. 2009 to 2011, special teams assistant with Alabama under Saban. And then he's been with the Patriots from 2012 to 2019. He was a special teams assistant, and he was a special teams coordinator / wide receivers coach last year. What on earth qualifies Joe Judge to be the head coach of the Green Bay or the New York Giants?
So if you're looking at that resume and you say, well, he worked for two of the greatest coaches in this century.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a nice resume. That part. But
Alex, you worked for the president at some. You've worked for two presidents at some level. Does that?
I've worked for three presidents technically.
Oh, have you? Okay.
Yeah.
You worked for three presidents. Does that mean you need to run for office?
No, I've advised myself not to run for office.
There you go. And I'm not trying to bash on you, but I mean, it's just a joke. But I mean, just because he was in Bill Belichick's orbit does not mean that it's going to work.
No, I know. And let's look at the history of people who have come out of Bill Belichick and Nick Saban's orbit. How many of these guys have really had a lot of success?
None.
Right. So, like, if you're really thinking about it critically, it's probably not the best thing on a resume. But at the same time, you're like, he probably must have learned something from them. All right?
Now, I don't know. Do we know, is Joe Judge white? I'm assuming
I think he is, yes.
Okay. So, I mean, we talked about this on IJB a couple weeks ago. I think it was a show that you did with me, right? About the Rooney Rule. You and I did the Rooney Rule
I was there.
I think we would be remiss to not bring this up. There were only 5 head coaching vacancies. Ron Rivera was the only minority hired.
Right.
Eric Bieniemy, who is the hot name, did not get any interviews as far as we could tell, because obviously the Chiefs were in the Super Bowl and he was coaching.
Well, there is that 1 week where they let you kind of do that still.
Well, he could have done it in the off week before the Super Bowl
Right.
if he'd wanted. And there's not to say that teams, he couldn't have gone out on a Tuesday and done it, but by all appearances he didn't interview at all. I do think there's a racial component to this. I'm not saying that the owners are racist necessarily, but you can't deny the fact that the NFL hiring practices has not exactly lived up to the breakout that you would assume, given the fact that the majority, 75% or whatever, the players are black. I get Bieniemy in particular because nobody wanted to wait for him. But at the same time, if your option is Joe Judge, wouldn't you want to wait?
Right.
Bieniemy didn't get hired. He's still offensive coordinator of the Kansas City Chiefs. I think I would have rather waited to interview him than rush to sign Joe Judge. There's not a market. There's not a waiting list for Judge.
But let me also counter with this. If I'm Eric Bieniemy, I'm just saying to Kansas City, Andy's going to retire soon. Like maybe not this year, but he's been doing this for a long time. He's got to be ready to retire soon.
Okay, but unless it's in your contract?
Yeah, I know. But like he seems to have a good rapport with the rest of that offense. I could see wanting to stick around and see if you can replace Andy Reid.
That's fine. Maybe he's made that choice. I mean, maybe he has.
I have speculation. That's where my head would be if I were him.
Yeah, I mean, he might have made that choice, but I just think that the Giants are remiss in not at least waiting. I mean, maybe Judge is going to be the greatest coach ever. We don't know that, but that's the problem. Nobody knows. Maybe he's the next Joe Gibbs. Because Joe was a name out of the blue, back in 1981.
Right. And just another guy who worked for a great head coach before, and
Yeah, but there's a lot of just the guys who came from great head coaches who didn't do anything.
Sure.
Josh Daniels looking at you. Josh McDaniels looking at you, for example.
Looking at, again, everyone who worked for Bill Belichick and tried to become a head coach.
Yeah, because he's the real genius, not the people around him.
No. The other thing about what the
Saban's
Giants
guys
did,
haven't done anything either, for that matter.
Yeah. The thing about what the Giants have done, or what they didn't do, is I think there were probably 4 or 5 good minority candidates out there that they should have given a serious interview to. And I think they gave a cursory one to the guy from the Cowboys, their defensive guy. I can't remember his name.
Yeah.
But that's a guy who I think is only 38, 39. Considered by most to be a defensive genius already. And no one really gives even him a shot.
I just think the Giants panicked more than anything.
Well,
it's like, oh my
I
God.
also think that the Giants have a history. They've never had a black coach or a black quarterback or something like that no one ever talks about. There's a lot of teams that can
say that, though. I mean, to be fair, there's a lot of teams that have never had a black quarterback and a black head coach.
I think quarterback, only one team left.
It's not more than that? Really?
No, I think almost every other team has had at least one black starting quarterback. I should say starter, not backup.
Starter. I'm sure. I'm just trying to think through the teams. I mean, the Rams.
Rams had one back in the 60s. Yeah.
Oh, they did? Okay.
Yeah.
The Arizona Cardinals. No, they've got Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
The Broncos. I can't think of a
they had the
coach.
first.
Who was that?
I don't remember. Again, you're going back to when they started.
So, but the Broncos. Yeah. So,
it's
Bears.
One of those little stats that is out there. The Bears might. I can't remember who the Bears had.
I can't remember a black quarterback for the Bears. Oh, but
didn't Cordell Stewart play there or something?
I don't remember if Cordell Stewart played there. See, the Raiders had Plunkett, who was Hispanic.
Yeah.
Maybe you're right. I mean, the Tampa Bay had Doug Williams. The Dolphins
it's one of those things that I think every team's at least had one at this point, except for New York.
Huh. I would have thought, that's interesting.
Yeah. And the coaches, I think you're right, rarer. That, or more common that a team probably hasn't had a minority coach.
Yeah,
Still.
well, I mean, the Redskins were one of them before Rivera, for that matter.
Well, unless you count Willie Lone Star Dietz back in the 30s.
I don't.
Okay.
But anyway, so I guess Redskins fans, I think you should absolutely feel the best about what happened in the NFC's coaching carousel this year. There's no doubt in my mind that Ron Rivera was by far the wisest choice.
Oh, I think in the NFC East, yes, and arguably of all the head coach candidates, he's got to be either one or two. I'd have to look at the list again. There was one guy I really liked. It was Carolina, of course. You know, they hired my guy, Matt Rule. So
Yeah.
But
Well,
that's a different
Matt
thing.
Rule is a guy who, low floor, high ceiling. You don't know what you're going to get with Matt Rule.
Right. He's never been a head coach in the NFL.
Right.
He's been a good college coach, but
He did wonders at Baylor and Temple
Yeah,
both.
he did. Yep.
So, I mean, he's done wonders there. So you would think, but Steve Spurrier won national titles.
right. And turning around a college program is hard, but NFL's a different thing.
Well, you know what? Speaking of that, since we have nothing but time, since this is kind of a...
We've got like 2 minutes.
Yeah, okay. So I give the credit for this, if I can find it real fast, to Clay Travis. I know a lot of you out there don't like Clay Travis. I love Clay Travis. He's the Fox Sports morning guy.
Right.
He had a great
For some
stat.
reason, I hear his name and I always think it's a country singer. Because it's
Well,
a very
that's because
country...
there's a Clay somebody who's a country singer too.
Oh, okay.
I'm not really a big country fan, but okay, here we go. Okay, this is from the Outkick coverage Twitter
All
feed,
right.
which is Clay Travis is Outkick coverage. 23 of the last 24 college football national champions have averaged at least 2 national title top 10 recruiting classes in the 4 years before they won a national championship. Only Oklahoma in 2000 failed to do so. That's from Clay Travis. So it's what he's saying there is it's all about recruiting. And so you can turn around a college program like Matt Rule did just by recruiting alone and not even having an inventive offense, not having coaching that's all that great. Your players are so much better. That's why Nick Saban keeps winning. I don't think he's necessarily the Vince Lombardi of college coaches. I think he's just a fabulous recruiter.
Nick Saban, I mean, I think we all know that's his number one skill set is recruiting.
Yeah, his
Same
offense
with,
isn't overly inventive. His defense is a pound you into dust defense.
Well,
he just has better players.
And that always was my argument about Matt Rule was he wasn't he's good at recruiting, but that's not his strength. His strength is in teaching guys how to have a good work ethic and building guys up who they might be 2-3 star recruits.
Right.
But he builds them up into better players.
Yeah. So
which I think and that translates in every league.
I agree with you. I think Matt Rule was certainly the next best choice besides Rivera. I think Dan Snyder deserves an immense amount of credit for what he did to bring Ron Rivera to Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and I don't think Matt Rule would work for Dan Snyder. Personality, it wouldn't be a good mesh.
Yeah, see, I mean, Dan needs an alpha to guide him. Dan does not need a beta male personality as his head coach,
Right.
Because
I think Dan wants a beta male, but I don't think it's a good move for him.
Exactly right. We've been down this road because Jay was kind of a beta dude,
Right. He lets
Jim
you
Zorn
do what you
definitely
want.
Was. Jim Zorn definitely was.
Right. Dan does better when he's got, Joe.
Yeah, Dan does better when he's the guy handcuffed to the bed, not the other way around.
There's a disturbing image to end this on.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. We found our disturbing image to end this on. I want to thank everybody who's still listening after that from Steve.
Somebody, if you are out there, you can do graphics. Somebody come up with a graphic image and tweet it at us of Dan Snyder changing
Dan being handcuffed to a
bed.
bed.
But if you do that, pretend like we didn't ask you to because we will never hear from the Redskins ever again.
All right. Well, that should do it for this week's episode. I'm off to go watch some XFL football. Y'all have a great week. Bye.
Bye. That was one of the more disturbing things I've ever said in my life.
Hey, I'm Zach,
And I'm Kevin.
and we're the hosts of the Rinkside Podcast.
We were annoyed by the lack of hockey coverage on local sports radio and decided that we were stupid enough to try and provide some ourselves.
We have what we call the Rinkside Guarantee. We guarantee that the podcast you're currently listening to is better than ours. We are literally just two halves of one whole idiot trying to fumble through covering the Detroit Red Wings, the National Hockey League, and hockey in general.
Check us out on Facebook and Twitter at Rinkside Pod, and subscribe to us on all your favorite podcast providers.
Every time you listen to our podcast, it brings us one step closer to our ultimate business goal of purchasing the Arizona Coyotes and then moving them to Detroit. What? Now, back to your regularly scheduled programming, or just another commercial. We aren't the ones who make those choices.